makes someone a legend? Is it their larger-than-life presence, their bold defiance, or the tales people whisper about them long after they're gone? In the rugged Wild West, folks like Reeves, Madson, and Pearl Hart didn't just survive, they became icons. But here's the real question. When we think of them now, are we remembering the person or just the legend we've created? Think of the Wild West, with its rugged landscapes and even more rugged characters. Among them, Madson was a giant, not just in size. His towering presence made him a sight to see at parades and special events, where he was always the center of attention. Wherever he went, his characteristic cowboy hat on top of his head, accentuating his extraordinary height and making him an unforgettable figure. Imagine the excitement of seeing Reeves Madson appear at a local fair or rodeo. Crowds would gather, eyes wide, just to catch a glimpse of the man who seemed to touch the sky. His presence wasn't just about his physical size, it was about what he represented. Madson embodied the larger-than-life persona of the cowboy, a symbol of the boundless frontier and the limitless possibilities it held. But what about the man behind the myth? Beyond his height, Madson was a skilled cowboy, participating in roping, riding, and all manner of frontier activities. His fame was not just built not because of his size, but because of how skilled he was and how much he was a part of the cowboy life. Reeves Madson's story is a reminder of the extraordinary people who became legends in their own way. His height made him stand out, but it was his larger-than-life spirit that made him a true giant of the Wild West. In every parade he led and every event he graced, Madson left a mark that can't be erased, a historic memory that still stands in American history. But that was not all. In the heart of the Arizona desert, another legend was taking shape, defying conventions and igniting imaginations. As you drive along the dusty road in the Arizona desert, you can hear the sound of a stagecoach. Within the dry landscape, a figure in men's clothes appears, its face set with purpose. This is Pearl Hart, a notorious outlaw whose daring wagon heist was one of the last known thefts in the Wild West. Pearl Hart's daring act was more than just a robbery. It was a spectacle disguised as a man. Everyone was shocked by how brave and smart she was when she pulled out her gun and took control. The heist got a lot of attention from the media right away, making news and keeping people interested. Here was a woman going against societal norms, taking on the law in a world dominated by men. Think of the shock waves that must have gone through the towns and cities. A woman not just living outside the law but excelling at it captured the fascination and ire of many. After her capture, Pearl Hart became a sensation. Her gender and unusual way of life made her even more notorious, making her a figure of mystery. Imagine the courtroom during Hart's trial, filled with spectators excited to catch a glimpse of the infamous female outlaw. Her determined character came through, and the way she refused to follow social norms was both shocking and inspiring. Some people respected her bravery and refusal to give in to a society that tried to control her, even though she did criminal things. Pearl Hart's story shows how complicated and sometimes contradictory frontier justice can be. Even though what she did was against the law, it showed how independent and strong she was. She is still an interesting part of the history of women who were criminals in the Wild West. She is a sign of bravery and the never-ending search for freedom. But Pearl Hart's story of rebellion and intrigue was just the beginning. Think of the steady clatter of horses, the crackle of gunshots, and the clear, sharp cry of the American frontier. William Frederick Cody, better known as Buffalo Bill, stands in the middle of this chaos. Cody was a famous figure whose life and stories were as big as the places he traveled. A superb mix of fact and fiction, he was more than just a man. He was a writer and an entertainer who made the Wild West famous. In the last few years of the 1800s, Buffalo Bill created a show called Buffalo Bill's Wild West that would amaze people all over the world. This wasn't just any show. It was a real-life look at life on the frontier. Reenactments of great fights were so real that they stopped people in their tracks. Stagecoach robberies were both exciting and dangerous, and cowboy shows turned regular men into mythical heroes. Native Americans, including well-known and respected chiefs, joined the group and performed their rich traditions and customs with a level of respect that made people want to listen. People couldn't help but be drawn to Buffalo Bill's Wild West. The show became famous and loved as it traveled across the United States. But it was the events in other countries that really made it famous. In 1887, the show drew over 2 million people, including members of the British royal family. Picture the streets of London at that time. What did they see in those acts that made them so interested? It could have been the raw energy, the sincerity, or just the sight of it all. A deep link to a strange and interesting world. Buffalo Bill's Wild West had an effect that went beyond being fun. It changed how people around the world saw the American country and created a shared culture story. The audience will always remember the show's exciting horse races, thrilling gun shootouts, and big parades. Always a great speaker, Buffalo Bill knew how to make a story that was just right between fact and fiction. Many people around the world got to see the wild, undeveloped American West through his show. So don't just think of Buffalo Bill as a historical person. Picture him as the director of a big, crazy orchestra. It was his Wild West show that set a tone that was heard all over the world and will never be forgotten. What about the stories about the Wild West that still make us want to read them? There is a lot they owe to the man who brought the frontier to life on the world stage and let everyone join in the exciting story of the American West. Madson's towering presence may have left people turning their heads, yet on the other side of the frontier, a different kind of giant was rising, one whose strength came not from size, but from justice. Picture the big, untamed frontier of the American West, a land where lawlessness thrived and danger lurked around every corner. Among these wild, unpredictable landscapes, there came a figure whose name would stand for justice and bravery. Bass Reeves, the first black deputy marshal west of the Mississippi. Born into a slave family, Reeves's early life seemed doomed to be hard. But like the heroes of old, he seized his freedom and set out on a trip that would make him famous. Imagine escaping the chains of captivity only to rise as one of the most respected lawmen in the land. In 1875, under the appointment of Judge Isaac Parker, Reeves became a federal deputy marshal, which would be the job that defined his legacy. Think of a man whose tracking skills were so precise, who had no fear at all, that he became the worst enemy of outlaws across the frontier. With over 3,000 arrests to his name, Reeves' fame in capturing criminals was legendary. He was more than just a figure of authority. During a time when both hope and justice were hard to find, Reeves stood out. Reeves wasn't just a law officer with a gun, he was a moral man. He chose to bring his prisoners alive, which showed that he cared more about justice than revenge. But when he was cornered, he had the best fighting skills anyone had ever seen. In self-defense, He killed 14 criminals, which shows how strong he was and how skilled he was when he was in deadly danger. But his reputation for being dangerous was so strong that many criminals chose to give up rather than face the guy whose name made them scared. Imagine this scene. Hardened criminals who are known for being ruthless are dropping their weapons at the thought of facing Bass Reeves. But what about the racism that was common in society at the time? Even though the chances were against him, Reeves's unwavering dedication and exceptional skills broke down barriers and paved the way for future generations of black police officers. His story isn't just about him beating his own challenges. It's also about breaking down social obstacles and standing strong against discrimination. An enduring symbol of justice and courage, Bass Reeves's legacy continues to inspire. In a land where the law was often as wild as the territory itself, he stood as a pillar of integrity and strength. His life story, filled with resilience and dedication, reminds us of the incredible feats one can achieve despite the odds. If you thought Bass Reeves' story was outstanding, you'd be amazed by the next one. The year is 1862, and the American government opens the door to a new life by offering 160 acres of public land to anyone willing to claim it. This opportunity came with a promise: build a home, farm the land for 5 years, and it's yours. The Homestead Act caused a wave of migration, drawing families, immigrants, and freed slaves to the untamed Western territories, all chasing the dream of owning their own piece of land. But this journey was not for the faint of heart. Settlers faced a harsh and unforgiving environment. Extreme weather, from scorching summers to brutal winters, tested their endurance. Isolation weighed heavily on their spirits, with neighbors often miles away. Resources were scarce, making survival a daily challenge. Timber, essential for building homes, was often non-existent. Instead, many pioneers constructed saris, homes made from compacted earth and grass, which provided shelter but little comfort. Think of the saris as nature's own bricks, a testament to the settlers' ingenuity and grit. These homes, though humble and prone to leaks, symbolized the start of their new lives. Each day was a battle against the elements, but the promise of land and a fresh start kept their spirits alive. For some, this promise turned into thriving farms and prosperous futures. Stories of success spread, painting a picture of a land full of potential and hope. However, not all stories had happy endings. Many settlers faced relentless hardships. Crops failed, and dreams died in the face of droughts, plagues of locusts, and other natural disasters. Despite the back-breaking work, some families found the land too harsh to conquer and were forced to abandon their claims. The land was both a gift and a test, rewarding those who could endure its trials. But what about the impact of the Homestead Act on the broader landscape? This legislation aimed to populate the western frontier and boost agricultural development. It succeeded in drawing a diverse array of people seeking new beginnings. Immigrants from around the world, freed slaves seeking a place of their own, and countless others saw the Homestead Act as a sign of opportunity. Their resilience and determination shaped the demographic and economic landscape of the American West, leaving an indelible mark on the nation's history. But for every story of hard-fought survival, there is a shocking story of a daring outlaw whose infamous exploits defined the Wild West. Picture a dusty saloon in the heart of New Mexico. The year is 1877. The air is thick with the scent of whiskey and tobacco, and the soft hum of conversation is broken up by the shuffle of cards. At one of the tables sits a young man, his eyes bright with mischief and a hint of danger. This is Henry McCarty, better known as Billy the Kid, one of the most infamous outlaws of the American Wild West. But what about the way he looked, the essence of his presence? Only 2 confirmed photographs of Billy the Kid exist, and one of them captures this very scene. In the grainy black and white image, Billy is playing cards with his friends, enjoying a moment of friendship. His young face stands out against the serious looks on everyone else's faces, giving you a hint of his unique mix of charm and cruelty. The photograph, despite its age and damage, offers a rare glimpse into the life of Billy the Kid. It brings us back to a time when the frontier was untamed and the line between right and wrong was often blurred by the smoke of gunfire. Billy, known for his violent lifestyle, was involved in numerous gunfights and is believed to have killed at least 8 men. His daring escapes from the police made him even more famous, and he became a symbol of both the danger and the charm of the Wild West. Think of all the dangerous adventures he went on in his short life. Each one added to the legend about him. Before he was killed by Sheriff Pat Garrett in 1881, Billy the Kid's life was full of reckless crime and close calls with death. But his story didn't go away when he died. Instead, it made his place in history as a symbol of the wildness and the lawlessness and adventure that characterized the American frontier. The picture of Billy the Kid at the card table is still a strong reminder of that time, when stories were made in the Wild West during gunfights and by candlelight in a smoky saloon. This book captures the raw spirit of that time. People are still fascinated by this picture, which is one of only 2 known to exist. Luckily, our camera roll has way more photos of the Wild West. Like and subscribe if you want to see them. We capture your presence in the next one.